Happy New Year and welcome to Patrick Replies, the show where I reply to your questions and comments pertaining to the latest video, that video being Patrick Explains Ambulance and why it's great. I'm going to take these off because it is incredibly hard to see with them on. But before we get into the questions and comments, we have some housekeeping to take care of because it is a new year, which means that the campaign for NOTC to 2000, the campaign to get our movie Night of the Coconut to 2,000 Letterboxd ratings, concluded and was a smashing success. It did take a 4.5-hour live stream featuring wacky antics like the Torpies eating Oikos yogurt to get there, but we got there. We reached 2,000 ratings, meaning we qualified to be... Oops. Here, I will put this elsewhere. We reached 2,000 ratings, meaning we qualified to be featured in Letterboxd's 2022 Year in Review, and that Year in Review came out a couple days ago, and we were in it. It worked. Our silly campaign worked. Night of the Coconut ended up being featured in multiple categories. In the category of narrative debut feature films, we were the number 6 highest rated movie. In comedies, we were the number 5 highest rated movie. And in the sci-fi category, we were the 2nd highest rated movie of the year. Suck it, Avatar and After Yang. Maybe you should have featured more googly eyes. I'm sorry, I like those movies a lot. So yes, this is all silly, meaningless stuff, and we did kind of game the system because unlike the other movies, pretty much the only people rating Night of the Coconut were existing fans who are, rooting for us and trying to support us. So obviously our ratings leaned kind of positive, but whatever. We are, I believe, the number 23 highest rated movie of 2022 on Letterboxd. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who watched the movie, who enjoyed the movie, and who went on Letterboxd to rate our movie because you made this happen. And I love it. And one last important thing that I have to mention, of course, part of the NOTC to 2000 campaign was a giveaway. A giveaway in which one of the people who rated the movie and submitted their rating to us will win the actual prop robot Charl from the Charl Origin puppet sequence. And so, let me look this up on my phone right now. So Emma Logsdon, our community manager, put all of these in a spreadsheet and then used a random number generator to pick a winner. And so, drum roll please, our winner is entry number 75, Pinball Witch from the Discord. So, Pinball Witch, I will send you a message on Discord in case you don't watch this video, and then you can send me your address so I can mail this to you. But congratulations, you won a piece of film history. And now you can brag to all your friends that you own a real prop from the 23rd highest rated movie on Letterboxd of 2022. Anyway, moving on. As always, we begin this show looking at questions from the Ask Patrick channel on our Discord server. If you don't know by now, the Discord server is available to anyone who is a member of our Patreon. So if you want to get questions in, just go join the Patreon. Links in the description. If you want to skip over all these questions and just get straight to the stuff from the comments section on YouTube, then, the chapter markers are here on the video, so you can go ahead and do that. Just click the time code. Anyway, question number 1 from 12pack88 says, I remember in your 2019 New Year's Q&A video, I don't remember that. You talked about how there were some things in Blake Snyder's Save the Cat that were considered valuable advice, such as the Pope in the Pool. If you haven't read Save the Cat, the famous screenwriting book, Blake Snyder, who's probably most famous for writing the screenplay to the family comedy Blank Check, he gives all these little screenwriting techniques and tricks like funny names, like the Pope in the Pool. Is there any advice from that book that you remember reading that you'd advise caution on towards new readers are to simply avoid. I think the book may be worth reading parts of, but I definitely want to avoid writing a formulaic script. Okay, so I do own a copy of the book. Here is my copy of Save the Cat, and if I'm being honest, I have not really read any of this in like a decade or so, and so my memory is a little bit hazy. Blake Snyder seems very insistent that you like follow these exact directions and write a very formulaic kind of script. He's basically teaching you like how to write a movie like Blank Check, the movie where, you know, the kid gets a blank check from like isn't it some kind of criminal, and then just buys all this shit, and then like an adult woman is like attracted to him. It's a weird movie. Some of his stuff, like, you've gotta state the theme of the movie on page 5 and stuff like that. I'm like, no you don't. That's not a rule you have to follow. Yeah, check out the book, but just take it all with a grain of salt and like take or leave whatever you want. Don't treat it as like a Bible where like you have to follow every one of these rules. But that said, if you do follow all those rules, I don't know, maybe you'll write a script that sells. Next up is Mulder from the FBI. You listed far more collaborators in the credits than I remember from prior videos, though you have mentioned all those people before. How did you divide work for a video this big? What do you still want to hold on to as the team expands, and what do you plan to give to others? Okay, so this is actually talking about the 80s movie video. These questions came in, I think, after we had shot the last Patrick Replies. So the thing is, on the 80s movie video, we didn't actually have any more or less collaborators than usual. It was all the same people working on it. I don't know, maybe because I used like flashier, more 80s style like title design, the credits just stood out more. But basically, like, the usual credits for a video are Mike Curran and Jake Torpy are the writers of the narrative stuff. Siddhant Adlaka is my co-writer on the essay. Actually, in the 80s movie video, Siddhant didn't like fully co-write that one with me, but he did do like edits on the script. Raven Thigpen is our researcher, and she did a ton of research, unsurprisingly, for the 80s movie video. Brian Metolius, our composer, Ryan Alva, co-editor. Chloe obviously appeared in that video, and it was pretty much the usual crew. So the question is, how do you divide work for a video that big? So our usual process, which, you know, could be tighter, but making these videos is always a little messy. You know, we know the topic, and I usually have a rough idea of what the structure will be. And so usually, like, first thing is I'll talk to Raven and give her an idea of like, here's like the kind of research stuff I would like, that I think, because the research will often kind of guide and dictate like how the script will turn out once we like just find the material. So Raven will go off and do the research. While she's working on that, I'll meet with Mike and Jake, and we'll kind of figure out like, okay, what is the story going to be? How will it tie into the essay? And then we'll like basically figure out like the core beats of the narrative. They'll go off and start working on like the script for that. Then the research from Raven comes in. I will write up like the outline for the essay with a lot of bullet points. Siddhant and I will have a conversation about like, you know, which parts of the essay he would like to take, or which I think, you know, he might be best suited for, or which he's interested in. And then we both kind of work on writing that simultaneously in a shared Google Doc. Then when the essay is done, I will shoot the whole essay and then send that all off to Ryan to start editing. Then when we lock the script with Mike and Jake for the narrative stuff, while Ryan is editing the essay, I will shoot the narrative and then try to edit it as fast as I can so I can get it to Brian so he can be working on the music to that while I basically take the editing over from Ryan and like do my final pass on all of it. And that's about it. Okay, so what do you still want to hold on to as the team expands, and what do you plan to give to others? I think I always will need to be involved in the writing of it, because the main thing with these videos is I think the topic and the ideas that we're exploring and discussing, it always has to come from something that I am genuinely interested in and want to talk about. The stuff I would love to outsource and delegate and give to others is things like sound mixing and like motion graphics. Next up, Kate Willert. Sorry, Kate, if I mispronounced your last name. Watching the new Q&A video on the topic of directors of an eclectic body of work, I'd love to see a video about Rob Reiner's completely bizarre career. I remember the first time I learned that Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, This Is Spinal Tap were all from the same director. My brain could barely process it. That is a genuinely very good idea for a video, because Rob Reiner had, I think most people would agree, like one of the greatest continuous runs of movies any filmmaker has ever had. And the really interesting thing with Reiner is that his movies were basically all in like different genres, movies that you would not guess were by the same people. So the only movie on there that's not like widely considered a classic is The Sure Thing, a romantic comedy starring John Cusack, which is considered good. I've never seen it. I should probably see it. But here we go. So in '84, This Is Spinal Tap, basically the definitive like mockumentary in like of all time. Then The Sure Thing, then Stand By Me, one of the most iconic coming of age movies, and also one of the most highly regarded Stephen King adaptations. Then The Princess Bride, iconic fantasy comedy. Then When Harry Met Sally, arguably the greatest romantic comedy ever made. Then Misery, a horror thriller, another iconic Stephen King adaptation. And then A Few Good Men, a great, also iconic legal drama. And then he made the movie North, which is widely considered very bad. I have never seen it. And then he never really recovered. I do like The American President, the movie he made after North, which was written by Aaron Sorkin, and it really feels like just kind of like a dry run for The West Wing. That's what's so wild about Reiner's run. That's why I can call the video Reiner's Run. It's this like incredible hot streak, and then he could never get it back again. And I don't know. Maybe I've got to do a video on him to figure out what happened. But anyway, Kate, good idea. WTF-adelic says, okay, this is a long question. Having not seen it, the synopsis for the new documentary, Lynch Oz, sounds like it could be the thesis for a video essayist such as yourself. Understanding that the format of this doc is more traditional with talking head interviews and is different in resources needed than a typical video essay, does Lynch Oz make you reconsider turning any topics you may have planned for future videos into a more traditional documentary format for a more mainstream release? Are there any topics you would like to redo as a traditional documentary? My immediate answer is not a video I've actually made. There's a video idea that I've wanted to do for a while that I know, like, the way I want to do it ideally would involve like shooting a bunch of interviews as well. In general, I've never really like had a huge urge to like make documentaries, but I could. I don't know. Anyway, here's a question for everyone watching this. Are there any videos I've made that you think could be like kind of like redone or reapproached as more traditional documentaries? Let me know. Side note, I know David Lynch films and Twin Peaks have been mined endlessly. Maggie Mae Fish's recent videos on Twin Peaks were excellent, by the way. Agreed. But a Patrick Willems video on anything David Lynch would be something I'd love to see. I actually, for a long time, didn't like David Lynch. I think in like my freshman year of college, I watched Mulholland Drive and Blue Velvet, and they both frustrated me, which I guess is kind of the point. And then I like kind of like just decided for a few years, I was like, I don't like this guy. And then I watched Twin Peaks and I was like, never mind, I get it now. But I will admit, I haven't spent enough time with his movies, and there's a few that I still need to see. Certain people are so passionate about him, and he's already been covered a lot in terms of videos like this. I'm like, I I'm not as hardcore a fan as other people, and I don't have a whole lot to add, but I don't know. You know, maybe I'll finally watch Wild at Heart one of these days, and I'll be like, that's it, I've got a take, so we'll see. One sec, let me get a drink of water. Tentacle Teapot says, having followed the Charles story from its early setup stages to the present, I actually stumbled across your channel just as it was beginning. And hey, you were not totally turned off. One thing I always appreciated was that the comments from people who didn't like it never caused you to abandon the storyline or scale back and try to course correct, and that got me thinking. I've seen a lot of discussion over the last few years about showrunners and filmmakers supposedly changing plots and endings either in response to fan backlash or because a fan theory predicted what was going to happen and ruined the twist. I'm not convinced that happens as frequently as people claim, but do you know of any times a studio did make drastic changes to an in-development film due to online gossip or backlash? I'm more wondering how often that happens with changes to the plot of a movie as opposed to things like the Sonic the Hedgehog movies for Sonic design being so badly received in the trailer that they changed his entire design before the film released. On a similar note, were you ever tempted to course correct while the Charles saga was still in the works? Am I aware of any times a movie, made changes due to online gossip? Again, as I've talked about before, on this show, I am endlessly fascinated by the production of The Rise of Skywalker, despite really not liking that movie. Without getting into everything I've heard, the fact that they say in the dialogue, the Haldo maneuver, and the movie was being shot in 2018, I'm like, that was a thing that they pulled off the internet. Because that was named by people on the internet. I don't have hard evidence for it, but that really seems like a movie that was definitely in different ways trying to react to, discussion online. I think this is generally more common with TV shows. I know, for instance, Josh Schwartz, the creator of The OC, has talked a lot about how they, if anything, I think, early on during the show, read too much stuff on the internet and were really aware of what everyone was thinking, and that maybe part of them deciding to kill off Marissa, spoilers for something that happened 15 years ago, was partly influenced by a lot of fans on, I think specifically it was the Television Without Pity forums. But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more examples. On a similar note, so about me and the Charles saga. So an important thing is that I don't read the comments section on the actual videos. I only really see what people are saying on Twitter and stuff like that. And while I was always aware, especially as we got deeper into it, that there were some people who were just like, I wish you would stop doing this and just make normal videos. While there were those people, the positive response was, at least from what I saw, much louder and more vocal. You're getting Charles fan art. When we debuted the Charles enamel pins, they sold out in a day. And so there was a lot more evidence for why we should lean harder into it and continue with it. In terms of any course correcting we did, it was really more sometimes we would discover that the audience had not fully understood something that we thought we were making clear, like a piece of lore or information or a story beat, and we might realize in the next episode, really underline that and make it clearer to make sure that they get that. So we were able to slightly modulate things going on, but we never made any huge adjustments to the overall plan due to fan reactions. Because again, we knew where it was going from the beginning, and we believed in the plan, and and it all worked out. Apathy Monger says, with the release of the multiple commentary tracks for Night of the Coconut, what are some of your favorite commentary tracks from DVDs or Blu-rays? I always loved the ones on the Futurama DVDs, as well as the in-character ones for Spinal Tap and Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. The Dark Place one is especially good. One that I haven't listened to in since it came out, but I loved the idea of, was in Tropic Thunder, Downey's character has that one line where he goes like, man, I don't drop character until I do the DVD commentary. And then the DVD commentary is Ben Stiller as himself, Jack Black as himself, and then Robert Downey Jr. in character as Kirk Lazarus. And I'm just like, I really respected the commitment to the bit. Obviously, all the Lord of the Rings extended edition ones were always great, especially the Hobbit commentaries, where they just basically make fun of everyone. I think like my freshman or sophomore year of college, I was obsessed with all the commentaries on the Freaks and Geeks DVD set. And I discovered that show, I think like in 2007, and became obsessed with it because I was so sad that the show ended like, too early. I was like, I need to extract everything out of this that I can and get every bit of content. I listened to every commentary track on every episode because they had a lot. They had like 3 commentary tracks per episode. It was great. Gabby DeBoer says, thanks for the great response in the Patrick Replies video regarding craftsman directors. There were a lot of pointing at the screen and going, yes. Also, I absolutely loved the video. It was everything I wanted it to be. Thank you. But you mentioned Peter Weir, and that got me thinking about another classification, the almost auteurs. These are the directors who definitely have a distinct style and acclaim, yet they never reach the heights of a Scorsese or Coppola. Like their movies have a distinct vibe, yet nothing you can truly pin down as a unifying vision between them. Peter Weir is one of those directors I thought of. Like, the closest unifying thing in Weir's movies seems to be empathy, and especially Alan Parker. I love a lot of Parker's movies, especially Angel Heart, and you can tell you're watching an Alan Parker movie, but never really why. The closest I can get is like, the music is always amazing, nor is he a household name like many others. Other directors I'd put here are George Miller, and maybe controversially Sam Mendes. This is a tricky one because you're also kind of getting into just like, public reputation here, and like how are these people discussed, which is there's less evidence for because it's kind of anecdotal. Anytime there are questions like, what things would you put into this grouping or category or be examples of this, I always just go blank. There was it was a textbook I had in college. It was this book Andrew Sarris wrote in like the late 60s. I think it was just called like The American Cinema. And it was like basically he pretty much classified all American directors that had worked in cinema up to that point. And he had these different categories for them. Some were kind of harsh, like less than meets the eye. And it was funny things like he was weirdly unkind to like Stanley Kubrick, who at that point had only made like a few movies. And so in some ways, like, it didn't age very well. But this feels like that kind of thing. If we had like the auteurs and then the almost auteurs and the craftsmen and stuff like that. So I don't know. You guys on like the subreddit or something should start making this classification and figuring out what the categories are and who goes in there, because I'm too tired to think of it all on the spot right now. Red is here says, if you were to direct a movie about your life, who would be the DOP? Which aspect ratio would you choose? Film or digital? Spherical or anamorphic lenses? Also, is The Fabelman's last shot one of the best ending shots ever? Okay, last question first. Yes, the last shot of The Fabelmans is one of the best last shots ever. A movie about my life. Is it cheating to say I'd like to do the Steve Jobs thing, as in the Danny Boyle movie Steve Jobs, and shoot it in different formats, like 4 different eras, and because that's like, it's like 16 millimeter, then 35, then digital. Let's say it's all shot on like a Canon 5D Mark II, so it really has that like 2011 aesthetic. No, I'm not gonna say that. I mean, personally, I think it would be very funny if it was shot by like Dan Mindell, and it was on 35. I can't really back this up, and I'll probably change my answer in an hour. But let's say it's shot by Ed Lockman on 16 millimeter. I was thinking that, about the way like Carol looks, and I was like, yeah, that'd be good. Jan the Man says, in the most recent Q&A video, you mentioned that you're reading through Astro City for the first time, which excites me as that's my favorite comic of all time. What's your favorite arc so far? Favorite character? Okay, so I have only read the first volume, or the first Metro book of Astro City. I have the second one, though. I've bought it. I mean, there aren't a ton of arcs in this one. The big arc in the first one is Confessions, which I think is pretty fantastic. There's also the arc about Jack in the Box and like his like two potential like future sons traveling back in time to try to kill him. That one was really great. I think it's only like 2 or 3 issues. Oh, also the final story in this one, The Nearness of You, about the guy who keeps having dreams of a woman he's married to but that he's never met in real life. That might be the best single issue of the whole thing. I'm really enjoying it. I'm excited to read the second volume. Favorite characters? I don't know, Cracker Jack's a lot of fun. Chris says, when will we get to meet the other Torpy brothers? That's a good question. This isn't really up to me. And also, I know them both, but like, I'll put it this way, I don't have their phone numbers. So like, that's not up to me. It's you'd have to ask like Jake or Matt when they're bringing the other ones in. Riley says, can you start listing the bottle of wine you're drinking in the description of each episode, maybe along with a rating? I could. I'm not drinking wine right now. Yeah, I'll try to remember that for the future. Also, my rating for all of them will probably just be, yeah, it's good. I like wine. If you can't tell by now, I really know nothing about wine, and I am not good at describing the flavor of individual wines. Are really, telling you what a good wine tastes like, because I like almost all of it. Yeah, it'll just be a lot of like, I don't know, like 4 out of 5 bottles. Mads says, I wanted to say, because he was the first person I thought of and haven't seen anyone else mention him, but for the discussion on almost auteurs, craftsmen, directors, etc., I think Steven Soderbergh is a really perfect example. Dude has made 37 features in the last 33 years, and there's only 3 or 4 that aren't at least okay, but he's never discussed as an auteur or as one of the great directors for whatever reason. He's a monster behind the camera, and he should be more of a household name. I kind of thought he was. He's famously the guy who pulled off the insane move of being nominated at the Oscars for Best Director twice in the same year, and he still won. Granted, in recent years, he's mostly been focusing on like small genre movies, but I think among like critics and like, movie fans that at least in circles that I'm in, like people I follow on Twitter and stuff like that, like everyone kind of loves and worships Soderbergh. I don't know what to tell you. I guess hang out with cooler people with better taste who give Steven the respect he deserves. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, and from what I mostly observe, he is generally considered to be like one of the greats. Pinball Witch, our winner of the Charl, says, sorry I asked so many questions last time. I just like to hear your thoughts on lots of things. Thank you. Great video. You sold me on Ambulance for the drone work alone. Yay. As for the question, a lot of what people think when they hear a Michael Bay movie is the spectacle, and rightfully so, as he's one of the best at putting them on to film. Since there wasn't a top 5 in this episode, can we get a top 5 Bay action sequences? Ooh. Okay. I'm not going to rank it, but top 5 Bay action sequences. I think we have to say the Pearl Harbor attack in Pearl Harbor. It's like the movie isn't good, but it is a pretty staggering feat. Like, it looks so much better than almost anything in the majority of modern blockbusters. So Pearl Harbor attack, let's say the Bad Boys 2 freeway chase, the one with like throwing cars. Okay, in Transformers 3, Dark of the Moon, the sequence where all the characters are inside the skyscraper that's like being cut in half and falling over, that's going in there. The freeway chase and like kind of like hover bike, jet bike thing chase in the island. So there's 4. Yeah, I'm gonna consider this an action scene. The New York like meteor shower in Armageddon. There we go. Top 5. P, smiley face, says, I tried to think of a question relating to the new video, but couldn't think of anything, so I'll just ask what your favorite format to read or collect comics is. I personally love deluxe trade paperbacks and hate omnibuses. Way too big. I do buy single issues every week, and I do read most things in single issues. I think my favorite format, though, is actually deluxe hardcovers. So that, like, hardcovers that collect like 12 issues. They look nicer. I try to get a hardcover if I can, as opposed to a paperback. I do actually like omnibuses, omnibuy, whatever, as long as they're not too big. Like a lot of the Marvel ones, like the Uncanny X-Men books are actually, I think those are a perfectly good size, but some things like the Invisibles omnibus, that is absurd. Like, I feel like to read that, you've got to put it on like a podium that they have for like a Bible and just stand there and read it. I did recently buy the omnibus of Ed Brubaker's Catwoman, which I've never read, and I'm excited to. It's a pretty thick book, so we'll see how well that works to read. Anyway. Next question. Dreamer Shill says, not to make everything about superhero movies, but I'd really love to see ambulance-style drone shots with web swinging in a Spider-Man film. Thoughts? That is honestly a fantastic idea. Because like you go back to like the first Raimi Spider-Man, and for that they developed this thing called the Spider Cam, where they would like, and obviously they were shooting on big 35 millimeter film cameras, but they would like rig the camera on like this cable so it could like fly down like between buildings in New York. But obviously that is limited by where the cable is, and it can only move so much. But with like FPV drones, the camera can move anywhere and can move so fast and basically do anything. Obviously, to do this in New York, they would have to find a way to, like, I don't know, bend rules or get special permission to, like, legally fly drones in there, because you're not allowed to fly drones within New York City, but I'm sure they can make that happen. Drones could pretty much move in all the places and at the speed that Spider-Man does while web slinging. And then all they would have to do in terms of visual effects is add in the digital Spider-Man, and you'd have a totally real practical shot around that, which would just make the whole thing better, and you'd have the actual physicality of a real camera moving through space. I think that could be thrilling. I would love to see that. That's a really good idea. And look, whenever they make new Spider-Man movies, they should do that. I doubt they will. I think Marvel will just make it 100% CGI, but they should do this. It would also be cheaper. Sambo is Person says, what are your predictions for the setting and plot of the third Knives Out movie, and who do you want in the cast? I think it should be set at a ski resort in the Swiss Alps during the winter. I think that would be fun. Also, who should be in it? Matt Berry. Wee Teeth says, was your sister exaggerating, or did it really take you like 15 years to win a game of Tell Mary What to Eat? Wow, I can't believe people know about this now. This is a reference to a story that came up in the Christmas Q&A video with my sister, and an old game she used to play when we were growing up, where she was hungry but didn't know what to eat, and would say, let's play Tell Mary What to Eat. And I would have to pitch food options to her, and then she would not take my advice. I mean, this wasn't like a real game that you won or whatever. This was just like an annoying activity. It was silly, and yeah, I'm sure at some point she probably, you know, took some advice I had, but my memory of this is that the majority of the time I would genuinely try to be helpful, and she would ignore everything I suggested and then get something else to eat. And so I found the game frustrating, and I didn't like doing it because, for me, it was a big waste of time. Bobby says, since two of Bay's movies have been about American historical events, what is one American historical event that would best be suited to have a movie directed by Bay? Also, do you ever plan on making a video essay that focuses on any aspect about the Western genre in the future? Ooh, Michael Bay and American historical events. So the thing about this is, I don't want to see Michael Bay make a movie about like a serious or important or tragic American historical event. I want him to make one about something stupid and stupid people. You know, we can like really lean into the nihilism. This is not a serious answer, but I'm just like, is Michael Bay the guy to make the movie about January 6th, but do it with the energy of Pain and Gain, where every insurrectionist is just an awful moron? That's probably a bad idea. I'd watch it, but it would probably be in poor taste. How about he makes the movie about the recent difficulties the Republicans in the House had confirming a speaker? That would be funny. What would happen if Michael Bay just made a movie about, like, you know, dealings in the House of Representatives? I don't know. Also, a video about Westerns, it's possible. When it comes to Westerns, there's just so many important ones that I have not seen. Like, I've barely seen any John Ford movies and stuff like that. Before I tackle that, I feel like I have more education that I have to do. Tyler says, less of a question and more of a please tell us all about your meetings with the Daniels request. Oh yeah, so for those who don't follow me on Twitter or Instagram, I did meet the Daniels a few days ago. So the short version of this is I was at the New York Film Critics Circle Gala. My very good friend and co-writer on most of the videos, Siddhanth, he's a new member this year of the New York Film Critics Circle. Members get to bring a few guests. I was one of his guests. It was a lot of fun. It's a big fancy event, you know, and there's famous people there getting awards. Ke Huy Quan won Best Supporting Actor for Everything Everywhere All at Once. The Daniels were there to present him with that award. And then after the awards part of it, you know, we all just like hang out, mingle, go chat with people and stuff like that. And at one point, Siddhanth is like, the Daniels are over there. I want to get a picture of you with them. It'll be funny. And there's nothing in the world that I hate more than going up to strangers and initiating a conversation. I never ask famous people for pictures, and so I'm just like, I don't really want to. And he's like, no, we have to do it. And so I gave in. We went over, he said, hi, this is my friend Patrick. He also made a movie this year about multiverses and inanimate objects with googly eyes. And they were like, whoa, really? And I explained, I told them what Night of the Coconut is, and how when the trailer for their movie came out while I was in post on mine, I almost had a heart attack. And then thankfully, when I saw their movie, I was like, oh, this is a very different thing. I have nothing to be worried about. No one's going to accuse me of ripping stuff off. And yeah, they were asking about the movie and what it was called. I told them. I didn't want to waste too much of their time, so I was not like, so let me tell you all the whole backstory about Charles. But anyway, they were very cool and very nice. We got a picture. That was basically it. We are not now best friends. We were not like hanging out for hours. This was a brief interaction, but it was cool. And I'm glad that Siddhanth pressured me into doing it. Darby Act says, Patrick, do you have any ideas for a video based on Star Trek? My partner just got me hooked by watching all the movies, and now we are moving on to the next generation. But there seems like such fertile ground for a video, from original cast relationships to franchise filmmaking, to the treatment of Roddenberry, to the stall in the reboot franchise, to Shatner himself. Lots that could be good. You are totally right. The thing is, I've just never been a Star Trek guy. I didn't grow up watching any of it. The first Star Trek thing I ever saw was the 2009 movie. I have now seen a bunch of the movies, not all of them, but a bunch of them. I've seen a few episodes of the original series. I've never seen an episode of Next Generation, or DS9, or Voyager, or Enterprise. I've seen some Discovery. I'm currently actually catching up on Strange New Worlds, which is very good. But it's just, Star Trek is a huge thing that people are very intense about. And as someone who is just kind of like very casually dipping my toe into those waters, I just don't think I'm the guy to cover it. When so much has already been done by people who know so much more than me already, I have nothing new to add. And I don't think I will ever become a really intense Trek fan. Anything's possible, but I wouldn't hold your breath for a video. Sorry. Death Ray Tech says, I have spent an evening drinking Shiraz and not enjoyed it. The wine. My company
was lovely. Can you recommend a Shiraz?
Nope. Sorry. Like I've said before, Shiraz is not the same as like Petite Syrah. Anyway, look, as I said earlier, I don't really know anything about wine. I'll drink basically anything and usually enjoy it, so I'm not the guy to ask. Jan the Man, once again, says, loved the ambulance video. I didn't like it as much as you did, but I absolutely agree about how boring lots of modern blockbusters are. Thankfully, Top Gun, Avatar, and The Batman were far more artistically interesting blockbusters this year. Why do you think modern Hollywood movies all have such washed-out color palettes? The Marvel films are the worst offender, but lots of other stuff has that too. Is it cheaper? Is there some focus testing where audiences prefer that style? So I basically got this exact same question in the Christmas Q&A. So I just talked about this like a week or so ago. I would direct you over to that to watch it. So like right now, I'm currently almost finished finally watching the season of The Sandman on Netflix, which I quite like. I wasn't entirely sure after like the first episode or two, but I think it's actually turned into quite a good adaptation. My biggest beef with the show is honestly the way it looks, where there's like a great cast, great production design, great costume design, and then so much of it is just so just feels so flat and so low contrast. And I think a lot of this is just like, aesthetic trends on television, but you should probably ask like a working cinematographer or colorist to explain this to you. And in terms of blockbusters, I think a lot of it could come from the fact that it used to be that the people hired to make blockbusters were like strong visual stylists and people coming from the world of like music videos and commercials. Like you look at Top Gun, Joseph Kosinski was like this like huge in-demand commercial director before he went to make, big blockbuster movies. And a lot of the people who make these now are people who come from like small indie dramas and comedies and stuff like that, people without strong visual styles. And so, your era of like your Tony Scotts and Ridley Scotts is, we're long past that. Anyway, this is a very complicated question. I did also just recently talk about this. And so, I think about it a lot, and it frustrates me. I will tell you, it is not cheaper. And I think a lot of general audiences, and especially like younger audiences who have like grown up with this kind of thing, they don't mind. But, that's one thing. It's nice to look at Ambulance and be like, a movie that has contrast in the images, that actually uses light in a deliberate way. I appreciate it. All right, and now we are on to the comments from the comments section on YouTube as pulled by Emma. So Emma, I hope you pulled some good comments for us and not just a ton of people yelling at me and being like, Michael Bay is a terrible filmmaker. I'm glad the movie bombed. No one should ever go see his movies because those people have boring opinions. Anyway, Accented Cinema says, I think the reason why Jake Gyllenhaal is so good in this movie is because, reportedly, Michael Bay was so hands-off with this movie. Gyllenhaal at one point picked up the camera and said, quote, I'm Ed Nortoning this bitch, reportedly. So I have not heard this anecdote before. It probably did come up. I believe it. One thing I do want to be clear about here is I don't think Michael Bay is ever really hands-off about anything. He usually operates a camera himself in like every scene. And I feel like this kind of sounds as if like, oh, he was just like chilling out in his trailer. Ed Norton is known for on some movies like kind of like basically like rewriting the movie himself and like wanting to basically like kind of direct it himself. And I do not think that is what happened here because Bay is known to be very controlling. I think what this is referring to is that Michael Bay likes to give actors a lot of freedom, especially like to improvise and stuff like that. That's why you get a lot of very big performances in Michael Bay movies because he's just being like, go for it. Yeah, like make up stuff, like move really fast. Michael Bay gives actors a lot of freedom. And I think that's why Gyllenhaal seemed to really enjoy the experience because it seemed like it moved really fast. It was really intense, and he was given a lot of free rein to to kind of do whatever he wanted, and encouraged to like give this really big performance. And so I think that's it, because Michael Bay was very hands-on, like all his movies. Jack Connor says, "Hey Patrick, I'd love to hear you talk about trailers for movies and how Hollywood creates them. Oftentimes people say misleading trailers cause movies to fail, but there's probably classics that have trailers that don't fully reflect the film. Maybe a breakdown about what makes a good trailer, like your needle drop video." So I did a video about trailers in 2019 that was specifically about Star Wars trailers and the way the trailers for the sequel trilogy were designed and like how the music was used and stuff like that. I mean, this is a complicated question because there's the thing about sometimes, especially movies that get like an F cinema score, because the trailer kind of like markets it and sells it as a different genre or something, and then it, like Aronofsky's Mother. It seemed like a horror movie, and then it's not a horror movie, and so people were mad. That kind of thing. Then there's also the cases where focus group testing led the studio to decide to like give away the whole movie in the trailer. Like the famous cases like Castaway. Apparently, audiences wanted to know that he did get back home at the end, and so the trailer revealed that, and the movie was an enormous success. This seems kind of like a tricky topic for a video, just because so much of it has to do with like advertising and like how to sell things to audiences and stuff like that. And I'm not an expert on that. Trailers are a complicated thing. I've always thought about, are there ways I could do more videos about trailers? But there's so many things that can be done with trailers. It's such an enormous topic. So I don't know. Dan Gibbons says, "Brian's score once again absolutely delivers. Loved the return of the It's Patrick Show theme at the end. Also, I guess I need to watch Ambulance." First of all, obviously, you do need to watch Ambulance. Second of all, Brian's score for this new video was so good. The way he brought in like the old themes and they returned made me so happy. I mean, hey, this is the power of leitmotifs, and I love that our silly videos actually now have like memorable themes and leitmotifs that people recognize. That is so cool. Brian's the best. Deuteronomy says, "Hey Patrick, great video as usual. I particularly loved the sad reprise," hey, there it is, "of It's Patrick's Show at the end. Great touch. Also, you made me want to go see a Michael Bay movie in this year of our Lord, 2023, which is a pretty unexpected way to start the year. I had a question for you about your writing process for this and other Patrick Explains episodes. We know that Patrick Explains Patrick is fairly different from Patrick Prime in terms of personality. It's very funny to me that now other people have to think about this as well. I assume that extends to being different from you, Patrick the creator, as well. I assume you're not nearly as obsessed with Fat Stacks and Cheddar, for example. Despite that, I have always taken it as read that Patrick Explains Patrick's opinions on the films he discusses are yours as well. Do you ever find a tension in writing a character like that, but having him act as your mouthpiece? If so, how do you resolve that tension? Would there be anything you would change about how you present the explanations if it was Patrick Prime in the explainer's chair? Hope you enjoy the break and can't wait to see how the new season progresses." This is a really cool question. I have always looked at it as the two Patricks have identical taste in movies because separated from the narrative, these all have to be videos where I believe the ideas and thoughts that I am expressing. Like, I'm not gonna lie and say Patrick Explains Patrick actually loves this movie that in real life I don't like. And so now here's a whole video where I talk about how great a movie is that I don't believe. No, I would not do that. While the opinions and ideas and thoughts are consistent and all things that I genuinely believe myself, the tone definitely changes depending on which Patrick it is doing it. So for instance, there's a lot of stuff in the Ambulance video that's just where I'm just trashing the Gray Man, which is a thing I do believe. I do think the Gray Man sucks. The Patrick Explains videos, they are on the one hand, more conversational because they're always like being delivered to another character in the scene. They're also a bit more hyperbolic, more intense. You know, he's usually like drinking whiskey or something like while delivering the essay. And also, we've established he's a bit more of a jerk. And so with that character, that feels like the right kind of place to just kind of go on a rant about some movie that I don't like. While in a regular video, that's regular Patrick, or Patrick Prime, I would not do that. I would not just start like yelling about how annoying I find the Gray Man and how the Russos are annoying and stuff like that. That would not go in there. The one place I did see a bit of tension is that when I spent like the year and a half, the 2020 into 2021 season, where Patrick Explains Patrick had like, you know, taken the place of regular Patrick and was doing all of the videos, I went into it like intending to have more of like that character's like personality come through, be a bit more intense, be a little bit more of a jerk in the videos themselves, to have them feel a bit more like Patrick Explains videos. And it just, honestly, the videos were so like just so big and complicated to write. I didn't do as much of that as I like hoped for initially, because it was just like adding that extra layer of personality was hard. That was just an extra step to the process that I just did not usually have time for. So in a way, I'm really just like fracturing my own personality, putting like the slightly darker side out in the Explains videos, the ones where, you know, he might yell a bit more or, you know, get a bit more hyperbolic, you know, go lean a bit more negative in his criticisms of movies he doesn't like. But that's mostly it. And the regular one is going to be a little bit more measured. David's Head says, it's really interesting seeing how your lighting has evolved with your videos. It has a genuine direction now instead of just what might look professional. And you can see how much of an impact things like your more experimental videos in COVID, like the Coppola video, and of course the massive undertaking of your feature have done for you and your team's experience. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would like to think that that the cinematography has evolved a bit over time. I mean, the funny thing is, in the ambulance video, I barely had to do any lighting there. The location on its own, especially because, like, you know, one side had all the windows, and the windows ended up being, like, the main light source. I only brought in one small, like, 1 square foot light panel to just basically be, like, an extra edge light. At this point, I think I know what all my tools can do. I know how to, like, you know, use this camera and everything. And a big thing, especially for making the feature, was having to work really quickly and try to adapt to whatever the location was, and figure out very quickly, like, okay, in this location, how can we use what light is already there, and then like supplement it in like a little bit, and then have something that looks good. So the lighting setups tend to be very simple. Like with anything, the more you do it, the more practice you get, the better you get. And I'm pretty happy with how the videos have looked recently. Polaris Draws says, gonna be real, did not expect another Patrick video in 2022, not after the Goliath that was the most 80s movie ever. Yeah, you know, I don't think anyone did. You know, we were doing like a video every month or so, and so getting one out just a couple weeks later, you know, with Christmas in there as well, I think was a fun surprise. For lack of a better question, I saw the stack of trades in your last comment response video, notably Far Sector, one of my favorite comics of 21, and if you could pick a single comic, original graphic novel, miniseries, story arc, or an entire run that you think would make a good movie, what would it be? There are so many. In my personal opinion, not nearly enough Grant Morrison comics have been adapted for film or television. Morrison, probably my favorite writer, and I'm like, when are their comics gonna be put on the big screen or the small screen or any of those things? Sea Guy is a personal favorite of mine that I would be I think Sea Guy could be a really weird movie that could be really cool. I really love Sea Guy. And I would love to see someone try to turn that into a movie. And I think get Morrison to co-write it. Yeah, I would love to see Sea Guy. But just more Morrison in general. Let's go, guys.
Crows Install says, hot diggity damn, your use of extreme ways was genuinely mind-blowing. Both made me crack out laughing, yet still pulled off genuinely enough to pull out those goosebumps such a scene played straight should or could. Weird. So, thanks, I guess. And right after writing this, I remember Patrick doesn't read these, but hey, whatever.
Oops, I guess I did read it. I am very happy with how Extreme Ways came in there. Also, that was Mike Curran's idea. He wrote that into the script. I think like an hour before we shot it. That was such a late addition. And when I read that, I laughed so hard, and obviously it was gonna go in there. So yeah, I'm glad other people enjoyed it as much as I did.
Bedinsis says, hey Patrick, this question has nothing to do with the video itself, but I am still curious. I believe you went on a vacation to Stockholm last year, or 2 years ago.
Nope, it was July 2022.
I just wonder what you did there and why Stockholm. I ask because I am Swedish, and I wonder what things I might take for granted that attract tourists.
I don't even really have a good answer for this. I have always just had this kind of an interest in Sweden. Just a thing from like, I like their aesthetics and design, and I like Sweden has always made so much great pop music. The architecture seems cool, knowing that Stockholm is like one of the influences on the city from Kiki's Delivery Service. Everything about it just seemed cool. And also, like, Scandinavian weather is the kind of like climate that I am built for. Since I was taking some time off after Night of the Coconut came out, I was just like, look, Patrick, you have time off. And then since I'm bad at relaxing, I was just like, you are going to just go to some European country and hang out for like a week or so. Just go someplace and relax. Don't even like plan the vacation, just go and relax. Because I didn't want to go somewhere hot, because like New York is miserable in the summer. And so I was like, okay, it has to be like north of France. So I was kind of leaning towards Scandinavian countries, looking at prices of flights. In the end, I was kind of leaning toward between either Oslo or Stockholm. And then just kind of on a whim, I was like, fuck it, Stockholm, let's do it. In terms of what I did there, if anyone follows me on Instagram, you know I spent a lot of time sitting at so many coffee shops and like drinking cappuccinos and reading, which was really my main goal for the trip. But I just kind of like walked all over the city. I pretty much knocked out all the museums that I thought were worth checking out, like on the first day. I am forgetting a lot of the names of specific places I went to. I have this all written down somewhere, but I will say I loved it. I really loved it, and I'm really anxious to go back. And then next time also venture out of Stockholm and go to more places in Sweden. I think Sweden's great. I really like it there.
Andre Love says, when are we going to finally admit that Jakey G is one of the most engaging, interesting, and charismatic leading men of our generation?
I don't know. I feel like I've been saying that, I feel like, since Nightcrawler. So I don't know why everyone, hasn't been agreeing with this for years.
Connor Nyan,
please tell me how to pronounce your name.
Hey Pat, is that a Super Takamar you're using in the opening? I'm 90% sure it's a vintage lens, almost want to say Helios, but my gut is saying Super Takamar or maybe Canon FD.
So Connor, it is actually a Helios lens. Yeah. That is, usually I shoot all the narrative stuff on Canon FD lenses. I have maybe like 4 or 5 FDs. But yeah, for the opening of the ambulance video, I used the Helios for all of that, which is a lens I like a lot. Really good catch.
Blue Fox 94 says, I don't understand how Roberto De Angelis isn't getting a best cinematography mentions across the regional critics groups and industry groups.
I mean, it's just one of those things where, like, Ambulance is not being pushed for any awards by the studio, especially because usually if a movie kind of underperforms like that, especially when it's not like an awards type movie, it's never gonna get any consideration. It's one of those things where it's like, every Bay movie looks good, but other than like sound awards, I don't think studios ever submit it or push it for anything, like even cinematography.
Daniel Abernathy says, I'd like to see a bigger deep dive into what makes a big budget action scene boring. Would The Gray Man have worked 25 years ago? Or would it have been bland then too?
I genuinely think The Gray Man would have, if nothing else, been better, and especially it would have looked good if it were made like in the 90s. Would have been shot on film. They would have used like actual lights. I think that the stunt work would have been more impressive. It would have definitely looked better. Even if if Simon West directed it, I'm not saying it would have been great, but I think it would have been better and looked much better. In terms of what makes a big budget action scene boring, a good thing to look at is compare the action scenes in Skyfall to the action scenes in Spectre. Same franchise, same director, you got good actors, you got good cinematography, you got great stunt work and practical effects, and yet one movie has weirdly boring action scenes. And, I think it's interesting to look at that and see like what's the problem here.
William Lamping says, hooray, we got what we were all missing, beef with John Krasinski. We demand more anti-Krasinski content.
So look, William Lamping, I hope you have watched the talk show era, because that is where the Krasinski feud began. And honestly, it was a joy to bring it back.
And that is
Our last comment. We did it. Another Replies video in the bag. These are a lot of fun. I'm going to go make a pizza. And so again, congratulations, Pinball Witch. You are the winner of this beautiful charl, designed and built by Madeline Bundy for Night of the Coconut. And thank you everyone who helped us get on, all those lists for Letterboxd's Year in Review. That is amazing. As far as what's coming up, there's going to be one video in January that is not a part of the season. It is a special kind of standalone one-off video. It'll make sense when it comes out. And then the regular videos will resume in February. We got some good stuff coming up. Also, I am going on a vacation, an actual vacation, to the Bahamas on Monday. I'm very excited. All right, good night.